Good evening, everyone. This is Cathexis, and tonight, once again, I have one of my favorite guests, Quantum Eraser. How you doing tonight, John?
Doing fine, sir.
Excellent, excellent. So this evening, we're going to move forward with our presentations, debunking materialism and showing it as a dogma and a religion, as we have in the past several other episodes. Tonight, we're going to be covering something that's actually one of the biggest nails in the coffin, in my opinion, and it's just simply put, information. Last week we discussed that the materialist cannot really handle issues of time, ideas, information in general. These are supernatural to a materialist. And just by virtue of those axioms, they're not able to handle them properly. This is why we have such issues of what they call the hard problem with consciousness, which is they think that a materialist thinks that we're biological robots and that came about by natural means. By virtue of that, our consciousness is really an anomaly. They say that, oh, it's really just the chemicals and the firings of your brain, and because of that we have this anomalous thing called consciousness. And to me, I think that's utterly ridiculous. Over my years of philosophy and cognitive science study, I've realized that consciousness is only the hard problem for those who accept the dogma of materialism. So within that, one of the biggest reasons it's the hard problem for them is because of information. Now, this goes at multiple levels. It's not just at this consciousness level that I'm speaking of. It's also concerning genetics. And I think we're going to have a good time learning about what John has to offer here, which is what's happening at that level and what information really is and how we can talk about it. So without further ado, I don't want to bog down the show. This will be a rather quick one. So let's go ahead and jump right into the presentation, John, and I'll go ahead and hold questions till the end, and then we'll discuss it.
All right, sir. Well, before we get into information, there was another subject that came up a few times since last week. It's come up before, and I really haven't dealt with it because it's simple equivocation fallacy. But I figured I'd go ahead and deal with it now. And it goes along the lines of this. Well, you believe in quantum mechanics and aerobic metabolism. Why don't you believe the same scientists telling you that the Earth is a spinning ball? Well, I thought my position was pretty apodictic and pretty, clearly established by the things I said in the previous videos, but apparently I was wrong. So let me go ahead and square it away. You see, there's a big difference between quantum mechanics and the people telling us and showing us about quantum mechanics and these same scientists. See, they're not the same scientists, because the ones that are telling you that the Earth is a spinning ball are in this category, the fairy tale masqueraders, the one we went over before, and mainly in the last three in this particular genre. So astrophysics, astronomy, and cosmology. These guys are pseudoscientists. Crocheting is more scientific than these clowns combined. And like I said, these are merely saying the Earth is a spinning ball, as opposed to the real sciences, the ones that follow the scientific method. Those are the sciences: quantum mechanics, genetics, biochemistry. These are showing through validated experiments. That's empirical evidence. So do you see the difference?
Absolutely.
Here's the mind-numbing, incoherent sleight of hand that 99.999% of the scientific illiterate public has fallen for. The fairy tale pretenders ride on the coattails of the real sciences via juvenile equivocation fallacy with the term science, as in, well, we're all sciences, what's the problem? To pass off their metaphysical just-so stories as valid. Sort of this motif. Since transistors work and MRIs work, Therefore, spinning balls, evolution, multiverses, dark matter, big bangs, billions of years, ad nauseum are scientific facts. Well, wake up! This does not, these don't follow. It's not following. So I wanted to deal with that. Hopefully that clears it up. And we won't be getting any more people asking about it. If you're unsure of the position, just go back to the science presentation. It was the one before last week's presentation on atheism.
Perfect.
All right.
And we'll get into that issue a little bit more down the line. I'd like to discuss a couple things, but let's go ahead and go forward.
Okay. So, information. This is the absolute bedrock foundation of all those real sciences that I identified above. Quantum mechanics, biochemistry, genetics. These guys are all now information sciences. And, like I said before, I'm a big believer in the Socratic method. So, information. This is a pretty good definition. It encapsulates what information is. The communication or reception of knowledge or intelligence. That's it. Now, I want you to try to keep this in mind through the presentation. It's going to become very important. So, if you're a materialist and realist, or an atheist, this question right here is a big problem. It's a simple question. Does DNA contain information? See, all living cells contain DNA. See, this is a big problem because there's no way out here. If you answer yes, then my comeback is show it to me. I want you to put it in a jar and paint it red. You're not going to be able to do it because information is immaterial. If you say no, then you're back into the science denying genre, because I'm going to hit you with these. From Hood and Gallus in Nature, DNA has two types of digital information. The genes that encode proteins, which are the molecular machines of life. That ought to jump off the page at you. Molecular machines. We'll get into more of that here in a minute. And the gene regulatory networks that specify the behavior of those genes. So, and then we got Paul Davies again. He's a prolific writer on this subject. DNA is not a special life-giving molecule, but a genetic data bank that transmits its information using a mathematical code. Most of the workings of the cell are best described not in terms of material stuff, hardware, but of what? Information or software. That's the game. Trying to make life by mixing chemicals in a test tube is like soldering switches and wires in an attempt to produce Windows 98. It won't work because it addresses the problem at the wrong conceptual level. From the grand poobah, the geneticist of geneticists, Dr. Craig Venter. Over the next 60 minutes, I explain how life ultimately consists of DNA-driven biological machines. There's that word again, machines. All living cells run on DNA software, information, which directs hundreds to thousands of protein robots. Uh-oh, where are we getting robots from? We have been digitizing life for decades, since we first figured out how to read the software of life. See all the watchwords? Digital code. From the king, Richard Dawkins, in The Blind Watchmaker. There is enough storage capacity in the DNA of a single lily seed or a single salamander sperm to store the Encyclopedia Britannica 60 times over. Some species of the unjustly called primitive amoebas have as much information in their DNA as 1,000 Encyclopedia Britannicas. Really, that's pretty interesting, Richard. Wonder where that came from. Back to Dr. Venter. DNA is actually the software. See this actually? See, this takes rhetoric and figurative language to the woodshed. It's actually the software, information software. Chemically, we wrote the genome starting with 4 bottles of chemicals, literally going from the ones and zeros in the computer to writing the four-letter alphabet, and shown in fact that it is totally interchangeable between the digital world and the biological world. Uh-oh. That has some ramifications. See, he's talking about software here. We actually use living cells to boot it up. You change the software and you change the species. Interesting. From H.P. Yockey. He's one of the kings of information theory. He's arguably the king, but you could put him up there with Claude Shannon, for information theory. See what he has to say here. There is nothing in the physico-chemical world that remotely resembles reactions being determined by a sequence and the codes between sequences. The existence of a genome and the genetic code divides living organisms from non-living matter. He goes on to say in the same source, the genetic code performs a mapping between the sequences of the 4 nucleotides in messenger RNA to the sequences of the 20 amino acids in a protein. It is highly relevant to the origin of life that the genetic code is constructed to confront and solve the problems of communication and recording by the same principles found in both genetic information systems and modern computer and communication codes. That's giving you some more hints. Let's just go ahead and pummel it right now. Codes from Grunwald and Vitania, algorithmic information theory. This is very important, something we already know. So let them just say it. We repeatedly consider the following scenario. A sender, say A, wants to communicate or transmit some information to a receiver, say B. The information to be transmitted is an element from some set X. It will be communicated by sending a binary string called the message. When B receives the message, he can decode it again and hopefully reconstruct the element of X that was sent. Here's the rub, and we all know this. To achieve this, A and B need to agree on a code or a description method before communicating. This is apodictic. It's prima facie. It's one of those well-da scenarios. So I got a question. Is it possible for inanimate matter, atoms and molecules, to make agreements? Because they need to agree.
Yeah, not likely.
I don't think it's too likely. Of course, unless you think stupid atoms and molecules are alive. I had one person tell me a while ago that ink molecules were alive. That was a good one. That had a lot of interesting remarks at the dinner table. So let me give you an example here. Which one of these is information? Then, why or why not? So we got number 1, right? And we got number 2, meet me at Joe's for drinks. Now, obviously, everyone would say that the information's in meet me at Joe's for drinks, right? There's no information. As of right now, there's no information here. What do we need to even consider that number 1 has information? Well, if we go back up to the definition, A and B need to agree on a code or a description method, right? So allow me to give you the description method. After I give you the cipher for one, let me just pull this up. After I give you the cipher for number 1, they both contain the exact same information. Meet me at Joe's for drinks. What's the difference? Well, we didn't agree on the cipher beforehand, the medium, convention, and the meaning of number 1. So I'll give you the cipher now. It's every 4th letter. Just a simple cipher. And it has the same information as number 2. But before I gave you that cipher, there was absolutely no information here. Why? Because what is information? The communication or reception of knowledge and intelligence, right? Well, without the cipher, you're not getting any information or intelligence from this. You're getting nothing. So it's not information. Therefore, for information to exist, you not only need a transmitter and a receiver, but they need to agree beforehand on meaning, medium, and convention. I'll give you another example. What's the information here?
Well, need the cipher.
Jesus saves. The cipher is every 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, start over. So I'm not going to go through that. If anybody wants to look at that afterwards, they can go ahead and rewind it and check it out for themselves. Another very important concept to understand is not only what information is what information isn't. And I'm sure everyone will be able to see this pretty clearly. Your interpretation of the physical effects or consequences of the existence of inanimate objects is not information. It's your imagination. For example, when I put my hand under running water, the water's not informing me that it's wet or that it's cold or hot. When a tree branch falls in the woods, the sound waves aren't telling me I've fallen and I can't get up. That's not information. Since natural is the physical material world or universe, therefore it logically follows that the supernatural is immaterial, completely lacking matter or energy, right? This is something that we talked before in the atheism presentation, right? It logically follows. It's neither matter or energy, right? You bet it's not. This is from Norbert Wiener, professor of mathematics at MIT. Information is information, neither matter nor energy. So as a materialist or realist, how do you explain the existence of supernatural information? So if you disagree and you think that information is matter or energy, okay. If information is matter, please post the chemical formula, structure, mass, charge, momentum, and spin. And or if information is energy, then please post the millielectron volts, joules, or kcals for look out, there's a tiger behind you. I'd really like to see that. You'd have better chances showing achromatic rainbows. Not going to happen. So, on DNA proper, please elucidate the informations or instructions for amino-acyl tRNA synthetase or glyceroldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. You need these for life. If you don't have these, you're vapor locking. So put those instructions, in a jar and paint them red. You can't. Back to Professor Davies again. The way life manages information involves a logical structure that differs fundamentally from mere complex chemistry. Therefore, chemistry alone will not explain life's origins any more than a study of silicon, copper, and plastic will explain a computer program or how a computer can execute a program.
Perfect.
Yeah, that pretty much says it. So, like I was saying, information or software, I'm not saying computer software, I'm saying software. Information is software. Software is information. It's semiotic, i.e., it's not physical, material, or physically a part of its medium of conveyance. Letters, numbers, symbols are prearranged conventions between the transmitter and receiver for communication and to understand the message. Software is the meaning. That's information. The code is the symbols that represent the agreed upon meaning. Here's a good example. See this one? The CAT. This is a code. This code for what? Well, the letters cat or letter CAT aren't spelled out on its fur. Cat is the code name we intelligent agents gave it. The message is the agreed upon meaning or the software. Like I said, it's semiotic.
Exactly.
In Croatian, it's Mačka. Which one's correct? This should bring it on home. Paul Revere, right? Everyone knows the story. Well, what's the code? The one light or two lights, right? Well, what's the software information? Well, it was the agreed upon meaning between Paul and the Patriots, right? They created the software and the message, the one if by land or two if by sea. You know, who created that one if by land, two if by sea if it wasn't Paul and the Patriots? Was it the lights? That's the only two choices. According to the materialist or realist or atheist worldview, it was the lights. What would have happened if Paul Revere never met, agreed on the meaning, medium, and convention with the Patriots and set signals, one light or two lights from the Old North Church? Not much. Say for we might be having tea and strumpets daily. Moreover, was it the lights or the medium? Was it the lights or the medium that coordinated the meeting? As I said, information is semiotic. It's not a physical entity or a part of the medium of conveyance. Photons from Paul Revere's lamps weren't physically carrying information. The lights were just the medium used to signal the intelligent agents, who then assign the prearranged meaning. Information now exists. It is only then they know which path. We're going to be dealing with which path information coming up here next week. So when you're looking at a code right now, it's called the English language. The software or the information is the preemptive agreed upon convention so we can understand the message. Again, it's semiotic. Without meaning and convention, there is no information or code. It's utter noise. So, this is the rub. Code, information, or software is always, ever sourced by intelligent agency, without exception. See, it's the exact same concept here. See, these are codons in messenger RNA. And it's a bit redundant, and there's many reasons for that we're not going to get into, but as you can see here, the CCU, CCC, CCA, and CCG, well, that equals proline. All these equal leucine. These don't even equal amino acid. This is an instruction. Stop. So what I usually ask people is show me the physiochemical link between these and the amino acid or instruction. There isn't any. None. The laws of physics and chemistry contain no symbolic logic functions. That's what this is. This is all symbolic logic. This is one of the best quotes and one of the best papers I've read on genetics. This guy was brilliant. He's Ed Lewis. He's a Nobel laureate. He's recently passed away. Listen to this closely. The laws of genetics have never depended upon knowing what genes are chemically and would hold true even if they were made of green cheese. So what's he telling you here? The same thing I just told you above. The physiochemical DNA molecule is merely the medium. It's arbitrary. It's the same as someone writing, look out, there's a tiger behind you with chalk, with sand, or Cheerios, or Etch-a-Sketch, or M&Ms, or 3/4 inch nuts. It makes no difference on the medium. You can still represent the message, right? Here's another
Mm-hmm.
great one. This tells the story. From Roger Sperry. Come on out of there. From Roger Sperry, neurobiologist, another Nobel Prize winner. The meaning of the message will not be found in the physics and chemistry of the paper and the ink. To say the physical chemical forces are responsible for the message or information or meaning is tantamount to viewing a magnetic board with the message, "Be back later, gone fishing." The instructions are on the table. Have the exponentially, functionally specific complex space shuttle built when I return. Have a nice day. You then conclude that the force between the magnets of the letters and the board is responsible for the construction, the arrangement of the letters, and the message thereof. That's quite preposterous, if that's your story. If it is, I suggest you keep it to yourself and never, ever even whisper such in the galactic vicinity of a mental health professional, because it's straight jacket time. Information is the consequent of the necessary antecedent. Intelligent agency. Here's the syllogism. Code contains information, such as a book, Morse code, instructions. They all contain information. Information always has an author. DNA is a code, therefore DNA has an author. This is valid till the cows come home. It cannot be refuted. The response I get usually is something sort of kind of off the topic of the syllogism or the things that I presented. And it usually goes in this route. Nobody has ever seen the creator, therefore it can't be validated. Well, for number one, I beg to differ with that, because Jesus Christ was a witness, but fair enough. However, the compelling factor of the matter here is information existing. That's DNA, the hallmark of life. Who instantiated the code? It doesn't logically follow that because he doesn't reveal himself currently, physically, to then ipso facto conclude he doesn't exist or no evidence exists. Remember, the consequent information only follows from the necessary antecedent, intelligent agency. So my argument is an intelligent agency and information is exhibit from A to Z. The simple refutation. Let's say you take your family out, or you grab a bunch of friends and you walk into a restaurant, right? You open up the menu and read Peking duck with roasted garlic, $28.95. See, that's information. But you then conclude, until you see the specific intelligent agent that wrote it, that there's an equal chance that the ink, paper, and glue molecules that make up the menu are responsible for the construction, arrangement of the letters, and the message thereof. I mean, we could go back up. You could see the mental health professional and the whisper, etc. above. See, DNA contains information, algorithms, programs, within programs, in subfolders of programs. It has enough functionally specific complex information, 1/1000th of which would make Einstein blush. It has enough in a teaspoon to fill a stack of books from here to the alleged distance to the moon and back 500 times. Just in a teaspoon. As again, like I said, your conclusion, absent the specific intelligent agent who wrote the menu, that ribose, nucleobases, and activated phosphates, the ink, paper, and glue molecules, authored the menu or the instructions, the DNA. I mean, shroom-induced coma here is being kind. So, to wrap it up, I apologize in advance if my next statement offends you or everyone watching or will watch. I mean no harm or insult or malicious intent whatsoever. However, there comes a time to put away childish things and ideas. So, if you watched the previous 2 blocks of instruction, along with this one, the previous 2 blocks were science materialism, and atheism. And if you're 10 years older, and this doesn't have you on your knees in less than a plank time, then you need to check your pulse. If you have one and you can't reconcile this information, no pun intended, then turn your tricycle in at the next depot and report to the Who and Where Am I institution, and do that immediately. I can't break this down any further. I mean, information is information. It's necessary antecedent. You can't get around it. It's always intelligent agency. And we're going to hammer this so hard. I don't even know why we should, but we will, just because we can. And it's important. We're going to hammer this really hard because it's the basis and the foundation of quantum mechanics next week.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I appreciate your ear. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you, John. I really do. These are absolutely necessary to expose this particular side of these sciences. These are not things that we hear in the mainstream. And of course, we know why. But the general consensus, of course, is that, as you pointed out earlier in your presentation, that material just randomly built upon itself over time. So how can non-intelligent material, atoms and matter, form some form of communication where both sides can agree?
Exactly.
Is it possible for inanimate matter to make agreements? That is the rub, as you put there. This is something that also I want to get into, though, is, remember the question I asked you earlier today? Well, what tells the codons to group any particular way? And it has to be that there is an information being transferred there. The antecedent of that, as you say, is an intelligent agency. And there really is no way around that. Now, in my opinion, you could paint that however you want as an individual. You've got New Age folks, you got folks from a Christian background. You even have your modern day materialists who kind of lean towards this quantum New Age idea. But the fact is, there is an intelligent agency that has constructed this world around us in some way. And the proof is absolutely in the code of ourselves. The complexity of our bodies alone is only I find that it's people's ignorance of it that makes this so strange to them, that they can't see the real truth of the matter. But the moment you take 15 minutes and delve into genetics or biology, I don't think you could walk away saying that there wasn't some form of intelligence behind what we have here. Would you say the proof is absolutely written in the cells?
Oh yeah, I could just stop with information. We didn't go into the physical molecules, which would be, I think it would be too much for the target audience to get into, but it's equally as ridiculous. It is impossible to form naturally, spontaneously. Even DNA is completely off the table. RNA, a 30-mer RNA or functional protein can't happen. It's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics.
Yeah.
Can't form nucleosides, can't form nucleotides naturally, can't form functional proteins naturally. At a minimum, it's a 2-lot violation. There's about 30 or 40 other issues.
And that would kind of fall into that whole irreducible complexity. One component could not exist without another component in that particular situation. Like you told me earlier about the bicycle. Well,
yeah,
all of the parts needed would be necessary for it to be. So, I really, I shied away from this stuff when I was back in the day, when I was one of these scientism fanboy, rational materialist, skeptic, atheist kids, in my 20s. And Even though I touted evolution as if I knew what I was talking about as some kind of proof against the notion of creation, or whatever term people wants to put on this, creationism, or I don't like to put anything on it. It's just, it's a matter of fact though. Is it created or is it not? That's all I look towards. And the whole materialists paradigm explanation is absolutely implausible and scientifically invalidated at this point. The Big Bang cosmology, which gave way to the billions of years, which gives way to the evolutionary idea, which gives way to this naturalist or physicalist or materialist way of explaining our origins, is absolute nonsense. And all of that is proven right here in the past 15 minutes. There's no way that those materials, those base materials needed for cellular activity, could have been constructed out of matter that has no intelligent agency behind it. So I appreciate you pointing this out. It's not something you hear very often today. I think the reigning idea is that materialist Big Bang paradigm. But I think it was Terence McKenna that said, you know, science can explain everything. All you need to do is give it one free miracle. And their free miracle being the Big Bang, essentially.
Well, science can explain
yeah.
it's going to have a hard time explaining because science doesn't have vocal cords.
Mm-hmm. Well, Terence McKenna, it wasn't. No, I know you're right about that. No, and I agree. Science isn't some monolith. But you know, conventionally, we've all kind of been. That's what science. Another part of scientism is we think this way, like, oh, science will do this, and science, oh, and you know, science approved all of these things. I think people have it stuck in their head. You know, the ignorant masses, and I'm not saying that derogatory. I mean, ignorant just means lack of knowledge. But the ignorant masses just trust the white coats at this point. And I think we're far into the scientism problem that C.S. Lewis was trying to warn us about in the early 1900s. And honestly, we could go back historically and look at the eugenics issue in the late 1800s to the early 1900s, which, as much as they want to deny it, was caused because of Darwin's ideas. Darwin into social Darwinism, into this notion of eugenics, that we can fix our own species by manipulating the people. And of course it got dark when, you know, what happened with over in Germany. But what I found is eugenics never went away. It just got better PR. And they're doing it without letting us know. But that's a whole other topic I'd like to get into down the road. But do you see the connection between eugenics and Darwin personally?
Yes, it's all connected. It was all
Yeah.
connected from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a shame we've had so many. I mean, under the flag of eugenics, I believe Mao got rid of 20 million people, and you know, you could probably point this to any government in the past 150 years. It's absolutely dark, just ridiculously dark, and it's based off of an erroneous idea. Darwin himself even said the problems in it were too vast for him to be able to say that this was the truth. You know, the formation of the eye, and we could go down that path.
Well, wait a second. We're putting the farm before the horse again. I want somebody. I've been asking this question for 10 years to laymen who promote this fairy tale evolution. I mean, the 1860s called. They want their argument back. Number one.
So true.
And number two, I've been asking this simple question. You ready?
Uh-huh.
That nobody can answer. Please post the scientific theory of evolution. That's it. That's the question.
It gets them every time, man. There's nothing they can really say about it.
Nobody for 10 years has posted the scientific theory of evolution. You know why, folks? It doesn't exist.
It's an ideology.
Change is not a scientific theory. I change my clothes. That's not a scientific theory. You
It's an
can't
ideology.
you can't give me a theory of a hurricane by stating it's a change in the weather. That's
That's
not a scientific theory. It's moronic absurdity. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. And when I was going through that stage of being an evolutionist, a Darwinist, and the materialist, and the atheist, and all those little terms, when I was going through that, it's funny because I never dug as deep as I needed to in order to see that answer. I don't know if that was on purpose or on accident, but looking back, it probably was on purpose. The blinders that a human being has to put on subjects are just, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous how much information is out there about the way this world works that is actually science that demonstrates that there is some form of creator to all of this. That's something that I've learned extensively in the past year. And I do got to thank you for a lot of it. It's, you have that lowercase s hard nosed science, and you are as strict as you are about the scientific method. It should let everyone know how serious you are about this. So,
I don't think that it's strict. I think that's it's what it is. People have made it unstrict so they could
mhm.
shoehorn, they get the shoehorn and soap out so they can grease the skids to wheel in all their disheveled fairy tales. Well, I shut the door on it and then chainsaw
You do, you do, and that's something that a lot of people are. Well, they're not familiar with. They haven't heard somebody take the approach that you have. I think that, and we've seen a little lashback from some of the more dogmatic materialists who can't. They have no response to your arguments, so they just resort to calling you names.
it. Yep, that's their response to me.
I've seen it to myself. Uh, people who I've known for a year now in this conversation, that we've been having on the internet about science, scientism, the earth, all of this stuff. When one of the people who disagrees with you cannot form a proper argument in response, they resort to calling you dishonest, or they resort to just calling you names. And I think that the sad thing is they become extremely evident that people around them, what the hell's going on. Those people realize, hey, wait a second, this guy doesn't have an answer, and he's just calling names like a third grader. So that to me at this point, that tells me that we're on the right path. It really does. And looking forward, we've got the quantum mechanics. We're doing that episode next week. And how long is that one? Is it pretty thorough?
Oh yeah, it's all going to be pretty thorough.
All right, great. And then what we're going to do after that is have a recap, most likely a recap show, where I'm going to break down the implications of all these sciences, how it relates to modern materialism, as they call it. And we're going to really lay this out because I keep reiterating this: is philosophical axioms matter, and there is a dogmatic materialism that exists out there in this modern science world, and science communities or pop science, however you want to put it, it exists, and what it's doing is it's implicitly kind of pushing that agenda among the people who are ignorant to sciences. So you ask your average person on the street, like, "Oh, what do you think about the Big Bang?" And I'm like, that smart guy in the wheelchair said it's right. So you know what? He's the guy in the white coat, so I'm going to believe him. And it affects, this is where it's so important because it affects their individual choices. When their axioms are set to something that drastic, your cosmology dictates your axioms. So there you go on that path towards this atheistic, nihilistic. At the end of that path is nihilism, but not always. It's a gradient. But what it does to a culture and a community and a group, a nation, is it pushes people to self-centeredness. It pushes people to not care about their fellow man, to not care about themselves. And what do we see when we look around in the West? I think that this is just an issue that nobody really seems to be talking about. And this, to me, is the bigger issue out of all of the topics that we've been talking about, is understanding our cosmology and how it relates to our philosophy, and reminding people how axioms matter in this world. Because most people are operating with unchecked axioms. So we're going to go on and get into, after that show, we're going to go on and get into cosmology, the cosmic microwave background. Gosh, what else do you got on the plate?
We got CMB, redshift. We could beat black holes. We could pummel them into the phlogiston category, but that would be too quick because black holes were conjured from Einstein's field equations. We all know how that goes.
Yeah.
So
it's just such nonsense. If you look at what modern cosmology looks like, it's like a science fiction novel.
Yeah.
These guys have just gone. What's the quote by Tesla? Today's scientists wander from equation to equation and come up with an idea of reality that has nothing to do with what's real. And I think that's what's happening.
No, what he said was that they go after equation, substituting them for experiment.
Exactly.
Right? People don't.
Yeah, forgive my paraphrasing.
People don't know what experiments are, and I've been hearing this on everyone saying it on their channels about, I don't know, they got this George guy talking about his experiment and going to do an experiment and measure stuff. Let me tell you something. It's not an experiment, right? For number one, ask George what his hypothesis is. That should tell you. Because your scientific hypothesis is your experiment statement. You have to have one before you conduct the experiment. So I'd like to hear that one. Good luck.
Yeah, people need to be reminded what the actual language is that they're using sometimes. You know, we do hear this, a theory turns into a law after it's been confirmed. And people have such nonsense ideas about what science really is. And they speak about these things as if they know. And
yeah, that's where the problem lies. Exactly. Well, that's okay.
So frustrating.
That's okay. I'm out there waiting for him.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're gonna go put this together. I'll do as many shows as we need to, because these are subjects that are not being talked about or exposed very much. So everybody look out. You know, we're gonna have a lot to say and a lot to do. So is there anything else you'd like to add to the show today, John?
No, not at all. You didn't have there wasn't anything that popped out on the presentation for you?
Well, let's see here. I mean, I really, it was just more of some of the information I liked, no pun intended. Let's see, that second quote there. Let's see, what was it about it? Well, yeah, I mean, you did a very good job at really explaining this. It was more of, as you were going, things that kind of popped out at me is pretty evident of what you're talking about. I mean, the amount of times that is referred to as information and software by these Nobel laureates and top scientists, they know exactly what those implications of this means. You know, words matter, language matters, and there's definitely information being communicated there, and that just can't be done through just matter alone.
No.
No,
people are substituting the medium for the information.
Yeah, absolutely. That one quote where he goes and talks about the chemistry of it can't be. People want to attribute the physics and the chemistry to the actual intelligence, and you can't do that. It's working on two different levels of
Yeah,
Remember that quote?
like you said about the jeans could be made out of green cheese. He's telling you it doesn't matter. And of
Yeah,
course, and then of course, Dr. Sperry really drove that home with that.
yeah, absolutely.
Everyone knows
So
that the meaning of the message will not be found in the physics and chemistry of the paper and the ink.
that's it right there. That's the one that really stood out to me.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're not going to pick up War and Peace and think the paper and the ink wrote it.
And that's really the key. I think a lot of people need to think about. You know, it's something I think that's evaded by modern materialists. They want to think that we're biological robots, where this all came about through natural evolutionary means, and this just completely dashes that to the rocks, in my opinion. It's too obvious. So no, I appreciate everything, John. Fantastic presentation tonight. Really looking forward to the ones coming up. So I'll go ahead and close this down for the evening, and we are going to be presenting these presentations. I'm making them up into PDFs, and we will be putting them out. I think at the recap episode, I'm going to have them all ready for everybody. I've gotten a lot of good attention on that. You've done a lot of great work on the sourcing of this information. So a lot of people really would like to have it themselves. So maybe we'll put a little. Actually, we'll talk about that privately, John. But anyways, you folks have a really great night. Thank you, everybody out in chat, for coming by. I love you all for all the support. And thank you again, John. Everybody have a good night.